Thank you, everyone. Those were really exciting updates. My question is for the real-world evidence core. So has MPRINT thought at all about entering the space of using real-world evidence to develop in silico control arms for pediatric trials? And I ask that because especially in sort of pediatric rare disease or other really understudied populations, there's a wealth of clinical data in the electronic health record that could be used to build natural history profiles or in silico control arms to facilitate trials and drug development. So I'm just curious if the Real World Evidence Core has thought at all about their role in that space.
So it's a fantastic point on this, the scale of RCT to real world evidence heavy. That's over on the 50 percentile of towards real world evidence. And so the in silico controls, this is a data set that can help facilitate that. We're not at present plugged into the clinical trial design team for that kind of work, but that is something now that we have this data resource that we want to do at MPRINT 2.0 is make that part of the clinical trial design sort of consultation process, that if you needed that we have a resource to do that. So it's there and we're open to a lot. We've done the unsexy thing of rolling up our sleeves and building infrastructure more than doing really cool science, but now we're ready to do really cool science, and that is absolutely part of that for sure.
Yeah, that is something we've actually are proposing for the next year, next round is bringing in the cores together a little bit more of utilizing that data for pharmacometrics modeling.
I have a question regarding the MPRINT Academy. So you have mentioned that the work in progress, and then basically the idea I got is it is an online resource. So there's a lot of courses, talks recorded, available to basically public. The question I have is there any ideas regarding making it more like an academy, so you provide some certificates, this kind of things. And then second thing I would like to mention is this idea is not new. I mean, other organizations do that. Certara has I'm not part of it, but then I know about its existence. The Certara University, they also offer online courses that are like MPRINT Academy, always there, but there's also some live courses, and there are those certificates. So are you going to go in that direction? Anything that would expand on that?
Yeah. Yes, it's something we've been talking about here at IU. In regards to our modeling program, I know Mike Heathman's working on some POP PK focused tutorials or workshops that could lead to a certificate or for that would be allow that type of thing. We are also aware there's a lot of resources, and one of my goals is actually not to recreate the wheel for all of these resources, but to update our website to provide links to these resources. I know if you go to like the ISOP website, there's lots of links to resources for training and education, and so kind of being a marketplace to link to those resources as well will be important. I think the other thing we've talked about from pharmacometrics core, at least standpoint, is that yes, the videos are helpful, but it's the real world experience and questions that people come with that are also important. So we're hoping to set up a way to make consultations available, especially for trainees who are stuck on a problem, and they can reach out for support for that.
Hi. Wang, I have two questions for you. The first one is for that first review agent where you give it the role of overviewing, what's its output? What product does it produce?
Repeat the question. So in the multi-AI agent flowchart, right? So we have 4 agents. Number 1 agent is we call it task assignment. So we have to decide when the paper comes in, the AI has to decide which type of study. Is a PK study, is a PE study, is a clinical trial study and what are the subpopulation look like, right? So that really helps us to make decision on what the next step data curation tasks look like.
So it classifies the documents?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, okay, great. Second is, a half an hour per document seems like a really long time. Why is that taking so long?
Because, okay, so when I say one AI agent, technically is not a single one, so
Right.
especially the second agent, because every bits of information we pull out from paper is one prompt. So technically, in the PK side, it has 10 different prompts to do it. So I don't want to explain this. Technically, the second agent is composed of multiple smaller agents to do the work.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for giving an overview about the MPRINT program. I have a specific question about the copper. So copper, what I understood is like a biobank shared resource. Is there any like ongoing movement to like extract those information from that cell data or anything and then make it publicly available data?
Yeah, so our role is to link you to biobank resources. We do not have individualized data from specimens in it. You can find some of that in resources like DASH or other developed resources, but our role is really to say who has biobanks and biospecimens available and then allow you to reach out to them directly on it.
Chris, a question on the real-world data stuff. As we're here in the process of switching from Cerner to Epic, and part of the things that, with the pharmacogenetic stuff, there's a brain trust that's really helping Epic improve the pharmacogenetic stuff and that stuff in there. And as we've been going through all this validation stuff, and I don't remember seeing anything in there about any pregnancy module or anything like that in Epic. Is there space for, or should we be talking to Epic and trying to get them to put, add things in that would be useful both clinically and from a research standpoint for the pregnancy stuff, so you don't have to do like what you're saying, it's like, okay, this is nowhere in there, so we got to go through with NLP and pull it out of the notes. Are there simple solutions that maybe could be proposed to Epic to say this would be really helpful for some of these things?
So there is a pregnancy fact table in Epic. So there's a lot that's already sort of built into the caboodle model, and then the Clarity side has even more information that you can pull. So there's a lot that's already there, but in terms of, you're right, there's some things that just don't have a field in Epic, and then there's some fields in Epics that no one uses. And so, I would encourage tell your IT institution to try to fill out every single thing in the pregnancy fact table, and you're way ahead of the game as far as that goes. But there's a lot already there, for sure.
Yeah,
So that's maybe, Sarah, something we should be thinking about, is figure out what it is that we really should tell IU Health. We really need to get these filled out and make sure they're prioritized.
I suspect Christy Cyphers is involved in those discussions that she's had.
So one of folks follow up a little bit. People already know the Cosmos already, right? So that's a really great resource to having much bigger data source you can share. Obviously, even there you can do mom baby linkage as well. But having said that, the things Cosmos doesn't have is really the more detailed the data is. For instance, breastfeeding, phenotyping. We need a lot of more information to do this. But that's where the kind of a data sharing across multiple institutes was more federated data NLP capacity is critical for that type of research. Cosmos doesn't have that depth yet, but that's where we're working on.
Are there any other questions? As Chris and Lang especially were talking, I kept thinking back to our career development session on Wednesday afternoon, and Gemma Dickinson's comment that, this is where we're at today with AI, and machine learning, and tomorrow it may be a completely different beast. And I think over the last 5 years, we've really seen that, especially with the knowledge-based development, some of the work in real-world evidence core, and even, integrating AI into our pharmacometrics community. So I foresee that, the next 5 years will be extremely busy and different as we further integrate in the innovations and technology that are out there. So, other comments from anyone?
I talked to Rob last night about this AI thing. Just frankly, I don't want to comment too much on pharmacometrics, but I want to say I'm a chair of a department of biomedical informatics. I have many faculties doing sequencing single-cell data analysis, and I can tell you the Clouder has functions to run the single-cell analysis just by sending the data and tell the Cloud to do it, and they give you the results in 5 minutes. And it's perfect results, as I see it. And it's coming. It's like, I was wondering where's my staff students gonna do in the future? And it's no kidding, it's coming. And speaking of my PI myself, I have 10 to 12 students in my lab. And I'm wondering, do I need to keep that skill in the future, right? So this is a really realistic question in our fields, and I'm not trying to scare everybody. I'm trying to say that you better learn the AI and in a meaningful way, and just do it. And just, in my slides I talk about it, in the beginning of grant submission 2020, we budgeted 5 data curators to do the work. Right now, we have 1. I think that's good enough. So that's how we make it work. Otherwise, it's not going to work. That's the reality of the research. It's changing so dramatically during the past couple of years. And we all need to have to learn and get on that and do better job on this. So this is where I want to share with everybody. It's just very brutal, but in the meantime, it's create a lot of opportunity because we can do more. Research side, I love the creativity because given all those data, we can automatically curate from literature in a big scale, and nobody has thought about it before. That create a lot of opportunity for do creative, hypothesis generation, do better science. I think that's where people has to, not only student but also faculty has to think about, what more can you do with those much data because of AI. So that's where I want to share with you.
Actually, from that conversation as well, it really is about lowering barriers and giving access so that you can realize something without having to have an obstacle of a sort of gatekeeper in terms of being able to really leverage complex, what was previously very complex, a very complex process.
So related to that, with opportunity also comes risk that people will do what you guys have done is very carefully, done all kinds of stuff to make sure it's all right. The general public has access to these tools also. Whose role is it, or what can we or you guys do to help make sure that it doesn't, there's not things that come out just sloppily done with false conclusions and all that sort of stuff? Is there somebody that's got to monitor that, or how do we?
No, that's all about, let's say we developing the tools, we build a knowledge base. It has to be published, right? And every time you publish this, you go through the reviews, and all top journals, they're really stringent. They raise a lot of questions. You have to address this. So a lot of validation thing you still have to do it. So I think there's a very informal way to use it for putting out kind of general ideas. But also you want to put a database like this or developing a tool like this, you have to go through very stringent process to get it done, and that's part of research as well.
So I'm talking about people who are not planning on publishing it. They're just trying to make this stuff for whatever political, reasons they want it to make something look bad or something like that, right? Where it can actually come out. So it's, it's a little bit. It's a wonderful technology. I'm just trying to think: is there things that we can do or should be doing to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, it may not even entail somebody having malice just understanding that you may get an answer that without a sufficient foundational knowledge, you don't understand that actually those results have some problem to them. Never mind if somebody is specifically enriching for a particular output. And in terms of regulating that, I don't know if I have a good suggestion. Oh, sorry, go, Chris.
There's a very simple truth here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever talked to a bank teller, or maybe you were a bank teller part-time or in your previous careers, but if you talk to them, they never check signatures. They never pull out a card and compare signatures. That does not occur anywhere, right? And yet we don't have massive bank fraud every time someone, so we are rule followers by and large. If you put the rules out there, you'd be shocked how many people follow them. That's the place where we're not at right now. But if you can do that, 80 to 90% of all that just disappears. And so you don't need laws that put people in jail. You just need rules and guidances from all the institutions saying this is not appropriate, this is appropriate. And you're going to get so far because, again, you can point to so many areas of society where you could get away with a heck of a lot more than you do, but you just know it's against the rules. And that's all you need. And so I think for AI, I'm much more optimistic about this. Now, the bad actors you mentioned doing deep fakes and stuff, yeah, they're going to exist, but most people are not going to be anywhere near that line. So I don't know. That's my weird optimistic take on this.
Yeah, I just had two thoughts from your comments, Lang, about as this stuff gets so much more powerful, what is it that we, the academic community, the biomedical community, focus on, right? And Todd actually kind of hit on one of them that I wanted to bring up, the just sort of about the quality and trust around that, either accidental or malicious. At least now, I'll use my personal ChatGPT for questions around health, pharmacology, and I have to steer it in the right direction, right? So other people may not have that. Maybe eventually the models are so good that's relevant, but then that I think pivots to, what is our role? And I think maybe that is being a trusted, curated source that goes deeper, and then that gets to dissemination and implementation. And I think the work on LactMed is a really good case there, because now even if you have a trusted source, well, who's trusting it, and does that mean people are using it? The other aspect of this that I'm thinking about, and I actually remember presenting about this when I was at NIDDK years ago, is sometime after I retire, but maybe it's a couple of years now. With the ability to do sort of these, I'm also the domain of what an expert can do is now so much larger, right? It's almost like you can, going through the literature and then building a pharmacometric model and incorporating real-world data, that in 2 years, that may be almost, I don't want to say trivial, but very easy to do, right? Where that would have been a 5-year grant a decade ago.
No. Aaron, I fully agree with the couple comments you made. I think number one is, if the logic of the model is so powerful, we don't need MPRINT knowledge base. You just go, seriously. It's if it is powerful in a way where you can put the GPT in front of the PubMed, you can do it. But honestly, it's not there yet. That's where even the many information you create from GPT to PubMed is useful, but there's still a lot of hallucination or bias over there we have to guard against. This is probably the value of MPRINT knowledge base, which is filtered, being guarded. So therefore, information in the knowledge base are trustworthy, put this way. So that's one thing I want to say. That's the contribution we made to the community. And then the other thing I want to say is, I think Chris probably we already implementing remember, we have the identified version EHR data in the Ohio State University. We're testing a version of, we call it kind of a computing resource implement on top of that can do automatically study design, analysis, and it just doesn't need a statistician involved too much at all. I think this is where we're getting there. Again, this needs to take a process to get it done, because I think at the end of the day, somebody has to still say, oh, this is a good thing to do. But that scaling thing is really for real. is coming, yeah. I fully agree on that comments, yeah.
Yeah, and I think in terms of thinking, it may actually be good to, pivoting to like, what are the frontiers, right? What is it that the grad students and the postdocs are going to build their careers on? And at least I think one thing, and maybe it would be interesting to have a session in the future about what do people think about what the frontiers are going to be like after we get to this. But, MPRINT and the knowledge base, I completely agree, it has that massive value. Other fields are doing this, like multi-omics, right? Genomics. Like, I think one of the frontiers is then how does that get incorporated and what is that level of synthesis of knowledge? I mean, that's something like the NCATS translator program has been trying to get to, and I actually haven't talked to them in a while, so I don't know how far they're jumping with AI tools. But probably an important thing is to think about for the fellows, like what is really the frontier? What are they going to build their careers on?
Yeah, so I have one very broad question, majorly for Dr. Longley. He's my PI, but I swear this is not scripted. So basically, I arrived like, Wednesday morning from Columbus, and, last 2 days, I feel like this is a very high throughput training. I've heard a lot of topics, but I feel like in the past 2 days, the topics are basically small niche, like everyone has their own, very, very MPRINT related research, like whether this drug has anything to do with the lactation or has anything to do with pregnant women. But today I feel like the topic has switched gear, because AI is a tool. Like instead of a very small topic or a question, AI is a tool. It can solve a lot of different questions, right? So especially the thing that we've done in our lab, like, in Wednesday I presented like my work to, use AI to abstract information from the literatures. I feel like those methods are so scalable that not just within the MPRINT topic, but also could be used on other topics. So I was just wondering, so as AI practitioner or like, overall, like whoever uses AI, is there any like specific maternal and pediatric like difficulties, comes in like when you're using AI to solve problems, or like your method is just purely could be used everywhere. Just today we're in the MPRINT topic, so that we use it on MPRINT projects.
Yeah, so thank you, Pingwei. You're gonna get A+. So that's where, Pingwei, I think this is where say computer scientist training background like you will need to have more training on the domain knowledge. Yeah. Because we are not necessarily one who really know the science, but we know how to use the tools. And things we done okay is find a knowledge gap. This is kind of low-hanging fruit solution, but honestly, we somehow need to go deeper. What the knowledge gap is all about. I just think in order to move that needle forward, there's got to be more integration or collaboration with domain experts like physicians in the maternal pediatric domain, pharmacologist domain. Then you understand what their main question is, right? Then you can say how AI can help them even more. So that's I think the value of this community, people from different areas to talk to each other, understand how we can help each other. That's the learning I think everybody has to go through, especially training like you. I think that's value of attending this conference because you learn what do they care, right? So that's where you can say, oh, I can do better on this. So that's where I can want to share with you, okay?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Because to me, I've been working with AI for so many years. Like before I joined OSU, I was working somewhere else. I found as a data scientist, my major takeaway was domain knowledge is so important, or at least as important as AI itself. No matter how fancy your model is, if you don't have domain knowledge, the model probably just doesn't make sense. So to me, I feel like as a trainee, I'm really happy to be here, listen to a lot of different people talking about their topics, because I also have questions for not AI practitioner, but clinical physicians, what they really care when they see a model. Because this semester I attended a course called cancer immunology. Everyone else but me was physicians or immunologists. I presented one model, published on Nature Medicine. I thought it's a very solid model, but when they see those models, they don't care about the F1 score, or they don't care about how whatever metrics that we're using to represent the model, like, I feel like they care different things compared with us. Like, when I tell them this one did 99% right, and they say, okay, so what's going on with the one that they didn't do right? Like, they really, this seems like it's not like they are not okay with AI making mistakes, or I think it's more likely they want to know like why AI make mistakes so that they could use it with their cautious. Like, if I know that AI gonna make mistakes in this certain way, I will still use your model, but with more cautious, because I know, yeah, this is a part that I need to pay more attention on. So I feel like other than this, like anyone, has more things to say, like when it comes to us when we're doing the models, because I feel like we are more focusing on the F1 score and those things to just present our model really, really is powerful. But eventually, I really want to build something that could actually be used. Otherwise, right, it's just like, it's just our own game within the data scientist small group. I really want to see like how can we help, or like how can we address the model explanation, or how can we present our model better so that it's more trustworthy and everyone can use it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo Lang's comment and what you're saying. It is really about that domain expertise. And I'm the person in the meetings with Lang's group who says, why is that wrong? Because I want to know, first off, why is it wrong so I can know what I can trust and don't trust. But I also want you guys to work to improve that piece that's wrong, right? And so digging in and figuring out why it's wrong. But it's really critical that domain expertise, because the questions the clinicians are asking are very different than the questions the informaticians are looking at, and also having the knowledge of, do the factors I'm putting into my model make sense, right? Are these things that are collected before birth so that we can use it? Or, am I now predicting on something that happened after the outcome I'm looking at? So.
I just want to add one additional point though also is, no matter how good the scores are, what's the impact on a decision of an error that comes out of the prediction? Does it result in someone getting the wrong treatment? Does it result in a mortality or some significant morbidity? Because if it's just the one, that's still a big issue. And a few years back for British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology, we tried to build a screener to say which papers were likely to have zero citations, so that we could sort of pre-screen as editors, or play with this. It was never fully implemented, but pre-screen as editors. And it did pretty well, but it identified as zero citation papers some of the papers that ended up being the most highly cited. And so it was a very impactful error. Sorry. Yang.
One last question.
Yeah, Liang Zhao from UCSF. Sorry, I'm kind of being late. I hope I could have been here earlier. It's because UC has another conference in UC Irvine about real-world evidence. Then we have to attend that one. I already feel I missed a lot. So the feeling is that I think after the comment here, for real-world evidence, AI, everyone is doing that. Every school is doing that. I think there's potentially a need to establish a consortium. Let us share the code, everything. Otherwise, everyone is duplicating the same methodology, AI approach, to convert unstructured clinical node to the structured node. Even within UCSF, there are multiple labs doing the same thing. I think really need to learn from you guys, from all the stakeholders. I think it's the time to do those sorts of things. I have a technical question for in the healthcare system for the pharmacogenomic data. How easily, is there any analysis or like a way to do something meaningful linked to the longitudinal patient outcome data or demographic data, make more sense of pharmacogenomic data? What the size of availability of those data in your system? Can you make a comment on that?
I make a couple comments. Number one, data sharing is a issue for every institutes, governed by say I would say data sharing policy compliance. And so that's where every institute is different. I think IU has this biobank where they have genomics data, and then the clinical data is on the way to be integrated. It's not totally there yet, so they're doing okay. And at Ohio State University, we are part of a Helix program, and we actually then the compliance officer has signed off the data sharing, but the genomics clinical data they are kind of putting together right now. So I think, as I said, the simple answer though is how data being shared, genomics data, clinical data, really governed by individual institutes, data usage agreement policy. That's how it is, and every institute is different.
Although recently the NIH changed the guidelines for storing genomic data and compliance for these data sets that you download from NIH. And so even if you're doing your own clinical sequencing, the chance that you keep that in a silo and don't integrate it with information from the NIH is low, I think. So many institutions are trying to hit that higher data standard. That's actually going to make data sharing more difficult, not less. I don't know that there's complexity and some subtlety there. So we're in the genomic space, you hit another area that's just more challenging. Certainly not impossible. There's places that are doing it better than others, but it's going to be more of a challenge for sure.
Want to follow up an early question about NLP. This NLP starts being in the informatics for forever. There's no way. I put it this way: there's everybody developing their tools for the NLP task. It's a really open-ended task. So technically, it's an active research area, no matter where the large model look like. So I think put it this way is, I think there's consistently going to be a challenge and a creativity over there where people are going to develop their own tools for their own sake. So it's part of research. So I don't worry about people not sharing, as long as the journal publisher, they force the user to share their data and the codes in a paper, then I think that their sharing will be more, I would say, realistic down the road.
I'll just tack one thing onto that. There's share your code, share as much data as you can, 100%. But there's always system-specific domain knowledge that just, if you looked at my Teams chat, you would see so many clinicians that I ping because I'm in a meeting and I'm like, well, hey, how does this order set work? You can't move forward in the data analysis until you know something about, before 2023 we did it this way, after 2023 we did it that way. That is baked into your healthcare system. It is not easy to code. It's not metadata that exists anywhere. That stuff just happens all the time. And so that affects how you're doing your NLP and all sorts of stuff. And so I think we should share, but I am suspicious that, I'm with Long.
But
these are research grade tools for a reason. They're not going to be commercially viable for everything.
Having said that, yesterday there's a presentation from Wei Qi. He's probably still around. So Wei Qi and us, we are building up called a knowledge phenotype knowledge base. In general, so that's one of the effort, community-based effort, to putting all those NLP potential tasks and algorithm all together. So that's what do we do in the community, in the informatics community. So it's Hypothetical is also NIH fundable projects too. So that's where a lot of people like us we do that. Okay.
Thank you. It's been a really exciting conversation. I suspect some of this will continue in our next session too, as we're talking about some of the regulatory issues of data analysis and real world data. So with that, thank you everyone. And I think